Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Halftime on the Hudson. I'm Nick Chirito alongside Mike Duda, and this is our first ever live production of the show that isn't our NFL mock draft. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, Nick. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. Obviously, spent the previous summer getting ready to come here to Marist. I'm a freshman here, and it is a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here for the first episode of Halftime on the Hudson here in 2024. Nick, how are you? How was your summer?
Kind of went through the motions at the end there. Some might call it cruel, and as the Swifties would call it, a cruel summer, which brings it into our first discussion topic. The Chiefs are trying to three-peat. It has never been done before in the Super Bowl era, but it has been done twice by the Green Bay Packers in the history of the NFL. The first time they did it was between 1929 and 1931, and the second time was from 1966 to 1968. And that second time, they won the last ever NFL championship and then the first two Super Bowls. Never been done before in the Super Bowl era, and the Chiefs are going to try and be the first ones to do it. So, Mike, what do you think it means if they are able to become the first team to ever three-peat in the Super Bowl era?
Well, if they can achieve that, I'd say it's everything in the Super Bowl era in terms of everything in the NFL. They've accomplished it. They've done what no other team has done in the Super Bowl era. Of course, beforehand, there weren't as many teams, so you can't really say the competition was as great. I think it's the biggest feat that you could achieve in the NFL. It is so hard to win a Super Bowl, let alone win back-to-back, and then back-to-back-to-back. It's nearly impossible. So I think it's going to be a tough road for the Chiefs, but if they can do it, that's history.
And to give a quick history lesson to the viewers at home of teams that had the chance to do it, you had the Dolphins that went back-to-back in Super Bowl 7 and 8. And then right after they did, the Steelers went back-to-back in 9 and 10, and then the Raiders beat them in the playoffs. The Steelers went back-to-back again in Super Bowl 13 and 14, and they lost to the Raiders again. The 49ers went back-to-back with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, 23 and 24. Then they lost to the Giants by 2 points in the NFC Championship game the following year. The Cowboys went back-to-back in Super Bowl 27 and 28, lost to the 49ers, and then won again the following year. And the Patriots went back-to-back in Super Bowl 36, 37, missed the playoffs, and then won it the next year again. And then the Patriots again made 3 Super Bowls in a row, 51, 52, 53. They won 51, lost 52 to the Eagles, and won 53. So it's not out of the realm of possibility because almost all of these teams had a chance to do it. It's just one bounce, one play that determines everything. And, as we've seen already throughout the first 2 weeks of the season, the Chiefs get pretty lucky. And if they are able to three-peat, Patrick Mahomes gets 4 rings, Travis Kelce gets 4 rings, Andy Reid gets 4 rings as a head coach, his 5th overall as he won one with the Green Bay Packers back in 1996. But all of them are going to make stronger cases for the GOAT at their respective positions.
Certainly. 100%. I mean, if you look at it from the quarterback stance, everybody says it's Tom Brady. I would say at least 95% of people out there are saying Brady's the GOAT. Mahomes is definitely up there in the conversation if he does what no other quarterback has ever done. I mean, you look at all the greats. You got Tom Brady, Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Joe Namath. You can go right down the list. All these great quarterbacks have never gone 3 in a row. And besides Brady, nobody's ever gone more than 4. So I think it'll be a great feat for Mahomes, and I think you'd really get that conversation with Brady and him for GOAT. As for tight end, I think Kelce's already up there. He's having a bit of a down year this year through the first 2 weeks. However, I see him as one of the best tight ends of all time. And again, if he can three-peat, he'll be one of the best, and as will Andy Reid in the head coaching slot.
And in my opinion, I think there's a couple of other storylines that go along with this. I mean, I think Travis Kelce is already the greatest receiving tight end of all time.
I'd agree.
And he has all the numbers, not to mention that if the Chiefs go on a deep playoff run, he's going to break all of Jerry Rice's playoff receiving records, which people thought were insurmountable when Jerry set them, and yet a tight end is about to beat all of them. Right. And Andy Reid, he's already considered the greatest offensive coach of all time, and one more ring would cement that. But Steve Spagnuolo, he would get his 5th ring as a defensive coordinator, and that probably doesn't get talked about enough, that he's come to the Chiefs, and at least last year, his play calling on defense was the biggest reason why they won the Super Bowl, not to mention his defense in 2007 when the Giants upset the 16-0 Patriots was also a big reason as to why they won the Super Bowl. And this year, too, if they win, it's probably because he's going to make the right call at the right time. I mean, we saw it yesterday in the Bengals game. Didn't blitz at all. And then the last play of the game where they needed to get a stop on defense, he blitzed Joe Burrow, gets the sack, and then they go on a game-winning drive. I mean, his defensive play calling has been incredible, especially in Kansas City. And maybe he gets talked about as the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. Or if you want to say Bill Belichick, because he does have 2 rings as a defensive coordinator.
I think there's definitely the case for him. I mean, you don't even hear his name in terms of defensive coordinators, and he's working with a bunch of guys that they're not the best defense in football, at least when you look at the roster construction. I think the 49ers have a better defense. I don't think anybody would argue that. I love Bolton. I think Nick Bolton's a great linebacker, but I don't think they're working with the best defensive players out there. And like you said, that's a great defensive mindset from a DC, and I think he definitely should have talks as one of the greatest of all time at the position.
All right, now that's all the time that we have. We're going to move on to our next segment, Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is having arguably the greatest season from a right-handed hitter of all time. This season, he leads the league in home runs, RBIs, walks, on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, isolated power, WOBA, WRC plus, and any type of WAR, F WAR or B WAR. And he's second in the league in batting average. And he had a 102-game stretch this year where he hit 47 home runs, 109 RBIs, and had a slash line of 337, 506, 844. I mean,
incredible.
I know.
Just absolutely absurd. He'll go down. Speaking of GOATs, he will definitely go down as one of the greatest of all time, certainly from the outfield position in terms of offense. I mean, you look at guys like Bonds, they were using the steroids. So if you're talking about a clean player, I think Aaron Judge really has a case to be the greatest of all time. He's putting up these crazy numbers, and he very well might quietly win a Triple Crown if he can jump Bobby Witt by 8 batting points over the last 11 games, which is possible.
Which is possible. You know, Bobby Witt goes on a slump. He gets on a hot streak. But I don't think what gets talked about enough is that he's doing this in what is probably the hardest era to hit in. Like, the pitchers today are so much better. They're throwing harder. There's breaking balls have more break.
Yeah.
I mean, even he himself, he doesn't see pitches to hit all the time. They're trying to throw everything to him low and away. And when they make a mistake, he makes them pay for it. And it's like, I never got the chance to watch Barry Bonds from 2001 to 2004 play. Obviously, I wasn't even born yet. But watching what Aaron Judge is doing right now, it's the only thing that statistically you can compare it to. I mean, his OPS plus is 219, and for those that don't know, that means he's 119% better than the average hitter. His WRC plus is 214, which means he's 114% better than the average hitter at creating runs. And speaking of WRC plus, it is the 10th highest all time since the World Series became a thing in 1903. The only people in front of him: Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, and Ted Williams. I mean, he hit 62 home runs in a season, and yet this year he's even better.
Somehow, yes. I mean, I was looking at his stats beforehand. I thought that 2022, you could not get better from an offensive standpoint. And somehow, like you said, Nick, he has.
And speaking of baseball, the playoffs are just around the corner. And as it stands right now in the American League, the Yankees are the 1 seed, the Guardians are the 2 seed, and the Astros are the 3 seed. The 3 wildcard teams: the Baltimore Orioles, Kansas City Royals, and the Minnesota Twins, with the Detroit Tigers trying to sneak in the back door. And moving over to the National League, you have the Philadelphia Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Brewers 1, 2, and 3. And in the wild card, the Padres, the Snakes, the Mets, and the Braves trying to sneak in the back door as well. And I know you're a big Mets fan, right?
And I am. I'm a huge Mets fan.
How do you feel how they've just crashed their way after a slow start of the season, just got in here?
Well, it was crazy. I mean, They were 22-33 at one point through their first 55, which is almost a third through the season. They were third worst in the pros, and now they're 2 games up on the Atlanta Braves, who have just been a dominant force for the past couple of seasons. I think it's going to be a really fun race down the line. Granted, the American League is going to be okay. I think the National League is where it's at, and I know I might be saying that as a bit of a biased Met fan. I think it's going to be really fun down the line.
And before we actually went live, you had an interesting take about Francisco Lindor.
Oh, of course I did. I say that he's MVP because if you look at the word MVP, it stands for most valuable player. When you look at value, I don't think statistics right away. I think Keith Hernandez was robbed of an MVP back in his playing days because he turned a team around that wouldn't have made the playoffs, or wouldn't have been close to the playoffs, I should say, just like Francisco Lindor. Without Lindor on the Mets, I think that they're a below 500 team, 500 at best. But the Mets have Francisco Lindor roaming shortstop every day. Granted, he's been injured the past couple of days. And the Mets have seen such less offensive production without him on the field. I think that just shows MVP value. He's a great guy off the field. You talk about the incident with Jorge Lopez throwing his glove into the stands in LA amidst the sweep. And he calls a player only, meaning that being Lindor, turns around the team. I just think overall, and you have to keep into account as well the defensive aspect that he has over Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's a DH. All he does is hit. Granted, the stats say he's better, but I think Lindor should be MVP based on his pure value that he brings to the Mets.
And one thing about Shohei Ohtani is that he is having like the best season ever from a DH, which
Certainly
is
historic.
Which is very impressive. And there is a chance he might pitch in the playoffs. But we're going to get into the playoffs just a little bit later, but I just want to talk about the American League and more specifically my New York Yankees. It's been an interesting season because they started off really hot and then they started playing real bad, and now they've turned some things around lately. Austin Wells has been amazing. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are arguably the 2 best hitters in baseball. I would say they are.
Quite possibly.
Of the 6 teams that are currently in the playoffs, the only team that has given the Yankees problems is the Baltimore Orioles. They have a winning record against all the other teams, which I think is huge. And in the first round, I would want to play the Twins because the Yankees have owned the Twins since 2004. But also the legacy of Aaron Judge is going to be in the balance because he has yet to have a great postseason from start to finish. And with the way baseball is right now, there isn't one team that I can say that is just better than everyone else. I mean, if we want to look at run differential as the best teams, then that's the Brewers and the Yankees. But I don't think most people would pick the Phillies or would pick the Phillies and Dodgers over the Brewers. Heck, they might even pick the Mets over the Brewers, just how hot they have been. Baseball is weird. Just a weird sport.
It's a wild sport.
Well, that's all the time we have for you today on the discussion topic. We will be back soon, but let's head over to Prove Your Point, where we have Derek DeGallo and a freshman on his first time on debate.
Welcome to the Red Fox Report, presented by Marist Center of Sports Communications. Tommy Armstrong here with Dan Olbach. A new season of Marist Sports is underway. Let's take a look at some of the early action.
And we start with Marist football, a new era as head coach Mike Willis' program debut against Georgetown, and early in the first quarter, redshirt sophomore Carter James gets his first collegiate touchdown of his career. Crunch time, though, in the second quarter. Marist up 10-7. Redshirt freshman Ronan Casanova stops the checkout attempt. First solo tackle of his collegiate career, and he finished with 4 total tackles. Late in the third, Georgetown picking up momentum. Senior Naeem Kearney waltzes back into the end zone. Second touchdown of the day and his 4th most, leading the Patriot League. 11-19 in the fourth after Georgetown's second consecutive touchdown. Arjona airs it out for Jackson Connors McCarthy. That's his longest catch of his collegiate career. He led the day with receiving yards and receptions. Marist unable to score in less than 2 minutes in some stormy weather. Mason Gudger jukes the first offender and gets the touchdown. Georgetown rushing attack dismantles Marist.
One of our guys, William Rosen, reported on the sidelines of the broadcast. Let's take a look at some further coverage.
Over the last week, I've had a chance to speak with new Marist head football coach Mike Willis about what it means for him to be part of this new organization. And he told me they're going to be running with a mantra this season. And that mantra is FPT, F for fast. P for physical, and T. They have to play together. I spoke to Rob Scarlatta, and I asked him what he was going to say to his defense going into the half. He said, we're going to be okay. I'm not too worried about the defensive penalties. It happens. But he also said, you got to give Marist some credit. I also spoke to Coach Willis, and he told me they need to continue making each play stand for each play. They do not want one activity. They want each play to mean its own thing.
Marist men's soccer 0-3 on the year, coming off a shutout loss versus Cornell. Army 1-2-1, but a new goalie in net. 21st minute, game tie 0-0. A botched pass from Army. Morel gets the ball. He's going to look for his man, Chris Verhoul, who hits it, off the top of the crossbar. In frustration, game stays 0-0. Another attempt for Army here. Jamie Lowell gets the block off, and Nick Sanchez gets the deflection here. Marist, Jamie Lowell gets one of his first 6 saves on the day. He might have had a shutout in this one, folks. 59th minute. Marist has possession in Army territory. Game still 0-0. Aiden Arbor crosses, ball finds Skylar Cunha, and that's in. Chris Verhoul on his second attempt off the left post. That's his first collegiate goal of his career, and Marist takes their first lead of the season. Army's last chance to score, though. Lions get stuffed by Jamie Lowell. Marist wins.
Over to the women's side of soccer, Nicole Pacapelli looks to grab her first out-of-conference win as head coach against Navy. 15 minutes into the first half, throw-in for Navy to Mimi Abisham. Battle for position, sneaks one to Chiara Cosenza, who finesses a shot into the left corner, perfectly placed. And Navy takes an early 1-0 lead. Now at the end of the half, with 2 minutes remaining, Navy strips possession and has a lane available for Amanda Graziano to take a strike with the left foot into the right side of the net past the diving goalie. Navy takes a 2-goal lead despite being outshot at halftime. Into the second half, Marist corner kick cross finds Maylee McDermott on the opposite end, notching in both goals of the season for Marist and cutting the deficit to 1. Fast forward to 3.5 minutes left. Desperation time for the Red Foxes, unable to find the foot of Maya Reed as the naval blockade holds up the rest of the way, and Marist still searches for their first win.
That's all the time we have today. Alongside Tommy Armstrong, I'm Dan Allback. We'll see you next time.
We welcome you back to the Marist Minute here, presented by the Center for Sports Communication. I'm back with my Minuteman, Nick Chirito. Nick, let's dive into some women's soccer.
Marist is facing the St. Thomas Tommies, but is without their captain and goalkeeper. Just 3 minutes into the game, Lexi Huber's first attempt is blocked, but puts it in the back of the net on the second. An absolute missile with the left foot. Tommies with an early 1-0 lead. Jumping ahead to the 52nd minute, Sofia Caballero attempts, but is saved by freshman goalie Samantha Graff, her 6th in her first career start, but it would not be enough as the Tommies win 1-0.
Marist men's soccer heads to Ithaca to face the Big Red after falling 0-2 to start the season. Less than 3 minutes into this one, Cornell prime with a corner kick, but it's saved by Andrea Guianza. The ball somehow finds Cornell's Andrew Johnson, who stays on side. The Big Red take a 1-0 lead. Later on in the first half, it's a breakaway chance for Alex Harris, who beats everyone, placing it perfectly as Cornell would make it 2-0. It was a Big Red rush in Ithaca.
The men's cross-country team was at home for their season opener, the Marist Invitational at Vassar Farm. Before the race, Marist honored 15 seniors for their academic and athletic accomplishments. The Red Foxes had 4 top 20 finishers, including sophomore Jackson Borge and freshman Logan Scheffler. Following the second-place finish, Marist looks to compete at the Jasper Invitational.
Women's cross-country opened their season at the Marist Invitational at Vassar Farm. It was senior day. The Marist team placed first place, led by sophomore Parker O'Brien, who came in second place at 18 minutes and 17 seconds, and junior Adele Alexander at 18 minutes, 21 seconds, coming in 5th place.
That is all we have for you today on the Marist Minute. Alongside William Rosen, I'm Nick Chirito. We hope to see you next time. It is on. And we are on the hottest sports debate show in America, or at least at Marist College. This time we have one new debate show contestant and one veteran, even though he looks like he's 12 years old. On my right, class of 2028, his first time ever on halftime on the Hudson, Justin Schwartz. How you doing?
Good. Excited to be here.
Justin Schwartz, member of the cross-country track and field team. And if you just saw that commercial, you were almost there.
Almost.
I
was 8th on the team.
All right. And on my left, we have a guy who's 5'4" and makes it his entire personality. And one of the best broadcasters that I know, Derek DeGallo. You mean business today. Oh, okay. Derek DeGallo, head of student broadcasting, called 45 games in under 2 months. How did you do it?
It's all about sleep. It's all about sleep, man. I love to sleep.
12 hours?
I couldn't do 12 hours calling that many games, but certainly try to get as much sleep as possible. That's always the key every single day.
Well, your voice sounds amazing.
Beautiful.
And this is going to be an amazing show. The veteran versus the rookie. And bouncing off of our last discussion topic, National League wild card, you two have some differences in who you think is going to be the last team to make the wild card. So, Derek, I'm going to hand this off to you.
Yeah, so right now we both have the San Diego Padres and the New York Mets in the playoffs. Maybe not at the 1-2 spot, but both in the playoffs. So fighting for that last spot. I got the Atlanta Braves. It's pretty simple. You got Matt Olson at first base. I understand the concern with Ozzie Albies not playing second base, but they still got depth at the position, number one. Michael Harris is actually back. They got a great starting rotation. And when you look at the names on the roster for the Braves, you just got to look at them and be like, this is a playoff team. One come November, October, it is time for big name guys to do big things. That's exactly what the Atlanta Braves are going to do so they can get into the playoffs. And we all know anything can happen in postseason time.
All right. Well, if you're Atlanta, the first thing you got to do is actually get into the playoffs. And obviously it's been a struggle. You know, Mets really came out of nowhere, back from the dead, 22-33 to here we are. And they've had a lot of guys having down years. I know Olson's not having that hot of a year. Austin Riley, you know, the injury to Acuna. And, yeah, it's just been really tough for the Braves. They got a lot to overcome. But, I mean, they also do kind of have a cakewalk schedule to end the year while the Mets are battling the gauntlet. And they also do meet for the second to last series of the year. So it's definitely going to be interesting coming down to the wire. And I don't know if they're going to have the firepower. I think the Mets are going to take it. They're playing a lot more inspired. I think just it's their year. You know, the 2019 Nationals started 19-31. We started 22-33. I think it's our year. Let's go Mets, baby.
When you look at the difference between the Braves in particular, and the reason I picked the Braves is they got guys. They're not unproven. They're veteran guys. And when you're talking about, yes, you talk about injuries, you even talk about a cakewalk schedule. That's what makes the Braves so much more appealing is, number one, you have guys. It's not like you just have rookies that you're having to play. When you look at the Mets in particular, Lindor is out for who knows how long he's out for. With the Braves, there is no question in my mind when you're talking about before the season started and now, they are a playoff team. They're right in the race. They're only a couple of games back. This is a team when you're talking about during free agency and now, this is the team that nobody wants to play. Matt Olson at first base. I keep bringing that up because at this point in time, yes, it might be a down year, but does it really look like a down year to most first basemen? No. The answer is no. This is a guy who, when you look at first basemen around the league, he's a top 10 guy without a doubt. There's no question about it.
All right, I'm going to give Justin one quick last rebuttal. What do you have to say?
All right, well, I mean, Matt Olson is obviously top 10, but like I said, he's not having that hot of a year. He hasn't, and due to the injuries, he's not having enough protection around the lineup. So It's going to be easier to pitch around him. And plus, even if the Braves do make it, they still have a lot of demons to overcome. What if they run into Philly again? Last 2 years, they got knocked out even when they were favored to win. I mean, this time it would probably be a lot different since Phillies are in first place and Braves are fighting for their lives in a wild card spot. But still, I don't know. It's just, let's not even talk about the Phillies right now. They still have to make it, and it's just going to be interesting down the line. So I don't know if they're going to have the firepower to do it. I mean, I'm a firm Mets believer, but we'll see. I just think the Mets have the edge right now because, I mean, yes, you say Lindor is out for who knows how long. It was only going to be 3 to 5 days. That's really what they said. I saw he was on the field doing some work today, so definitely promising. We could definitely have him back by the time they play Philly for the last time. So I think Mets have a lot less to worry about injury-wise. They also may have Senga coming back for that series. If they even realign their rotations, they could have like Severino getting there, Minaya.
All right.
I'm going too
I'm
far.
going to have to cut this debate a little bit short. So we're going to have to move to our next topic. College football is back, and that means one thing. Players are trying to win the Heisman. Justin, who do you got?
I got the man that's leading the nation in passing yards and touchdowns right now out of Miami, number 8 in the nation, Cam Ward. He's just having a great start to the year. I don't really see anyone catching him right now, and that's really what I think. And he's also leading the nation in passer rating for quarterbacks, so that's also a good sign for Heisman winner, and he's definitely playing himself into a first-round pick this year.
When you look at guys in college football, one name stands out. Ashton Jeanty. That is the name. That is the best running back in college football. I can say it time and time again. He is the best group of 5 player ever. Not just this year, ever. He is the best running back, number 1. He's a combination of Leonard Fournette with his, big muscular body, number 1. And he's got speed like he's Tyreek Hill. This is an absolute dog. He is a dog. You're talking about week 1. You're talking about week 2. He has the most rushing yards by a running back in the first 2 weeks of the season, number 1. He also has the most rushing touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. When you think about Heisman, what do you think of? Normally you think quarterback. Normally you think receiver. What do you think of? I think of best player. That is what Ashton Jeanty is. And when you look at the game against Boise State versus Oregon, they almost won that game. And this is a team with Boise State in particular. They're going to make the college football playoff. They're a team that has tradition, legacy, and this is a team, when you look at it, they've beaten big teams in the past. This team's going to the college football playoff. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Then they're going to also make havoc. You know why? Ashton Jeanty. 2 words. Ashton Jeanty. No question about it.
All right. Well, I mean, you say running back, but I feel like the Heisman should go to really the most valuable player on the field. And I always feel that's a quarterback, kind of with the NFL. I know NFL and college are very different, but a quarterback most of the time is going to win you a game. So that's why I feel like it should go to Cam Ward. That's what he's done so far. Win games for his team, really put himself on the map. Came from Washington State to Miami, really put them on the map, number 8 team in the nation. So I just feel like when it really comes down to it, a quarterback is going to win you the game. And I just feel he has more value due to that.
Well, the two of you have some interesting candidates, but we're going to have to move into our third and final debate topic. First, Derek, I want you to just come up here. So as already mentioned before, Derek is pretty short. As a matter of fact, he's 5'4". Do you know who else is pretty short? Bryce Young, 5'9", quarterback for the Panthers, and is right now has led the Panthers to 13 points on the season, or 6.5 points per game. And he got benched. So now we have to decide whether or not that was a good decision. Derek, was it a good decision or a bad decision?
This was horrendous. Not just bad. This is horrific. You're talking about a young guy's confidence. It is done. It is through the roof. It is down in the toilet. Now, what is he going to do? Who knows? At this point, you cannot start a season and you have him play one drive in preseason, new coach, new offensive coordinator, new everything in Carolina. Guess what? You give him one preseason drive, you give him 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? What are you doing? You have no hope right now. Bryce Young, you drafted him number 1 overall. That is number 1 overall. You traded so much to get this guy. And now after 2 weeks with a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, you're giving up? What? Are you serious? Are you serious? What are you doing?
All right, look. I think it was the right move to bench Bryce Young, but it wasn't really entirely his fault. You know, he really had nothing to work with coming out of college. One of the worst offensive lines. He was just out there getting killed every drive. You know, he just looks like a shell of what we saw at Alabama. Not the Heisman winner we saw go first overall. What the Panthers gave up from him. He's just not, unfortunately, been that. It's mostly been stuff out of his hands, but I just think it's time to move on and maybe bring him to better scenery because it's worked for quarterbacks in the past. Look at Baker Mayfield, drafted first overall. He got did dirty, but look, he's thriving in Tampa Bay right now. Even although small sample size, Sam Darnold, you know, he's doing good in Minnesota right now. He drafted third overall. Jets ruined him. Panthers also ruined him. Spent a year under Kyle Shanahan, and now he's thriving, and we'll see how the season goes. So I think it's time to move on from Bryce Young in Carolina and hopefully revive his career somewhere else.
You barely gave him any time. What are we doing? You have a new offensive coordinator that's supposed to help Bryce Young. Instead, how much time does he get? 2 weeks and 1 preseason drive. And you're talking about year 1 to year 2. That's supposed to be the development year. You got to give them time. We have to be patient with young quarterbacks. You can't just give them up. And it's not like you're starting a real quarterback. You're starting Andy Dalton, which is just absolutely laughable. It's laughable.
Look, we're unfortunately not in the era where we give young quarterbacks time anymore. I know it used to be a thing in the past, but it's usually we're thrusting guys in and just say, hey, go perform. Look what you got in front of you. Just I don't care.
He has nothing to work with. What are you going to expect from a rookie quarterback with 2 weeks and 1 preseason drive? He's set up for failure. If you wanted to not have him be successful, and if you wanted it to be a development stage, you start Andy Dalton week 1. You do not do this where you start the second-year quarterback and Bryce Young, and then bench him after 2 weeks. The Panthers right now are an utter disgrace. A disgrace.
And that's why I think benching Bryce Young and trying to move on from him is the right move because let's be real, the Panthers are a terrible organization, terrible owner, just everything's bad about them. They got to get Bryce Young out of there if he wants to thrive as an NFL player.
Yeah, but as an organization,
I'm going to have to cut it off there. I'm sorry, but
this is ridiculous.
Go. All right. I have the winner. For the first topic, Justin, you won your first ever debate topic.
Nice.
For the second one, it was you, Derek.
Because it's Ashton Genty, folks. Ashton Genty, remember the name.
Which means that it came down to this third and final one of a short guy. And unfortunately, the short guy stayed united as Derek DeGallo won this debate. How do you feel?
All right, next opponent.
Wow. Justin, your first ever time on here. This is how the winner treats you. How do you feel?
You know what? I came in here expecting to get swept, so a lot better than I expected. So you said we'd want.
He said he'd take it. He said he'll take it. Unfortunately, that's all we have for you today on the hottest sports debate show in America. Me and Mike going back to this desk, and thank you for watching. Prove your point.
Welcome, everyone, to the Red Fox Report. Alongside Tommy Armstrong, I'm Dan Aldag, and today we have coverage for you from football, women's soccer, men's soccer, and volleyball.
We'll start with football as Marist heads to Lafayette for their first road game of the season. After Marist's first drive stalls, they look to punt, but a sea of maroon gets through the line for the block, and it's scooped up in the end zone for the early 7-0 lead. The very next possession, Marist looking to tie it. Enzo Arjona delivers a strike to Mohamed Diawara. Later in the first, Lafayette looking to take the lead back. It's Jamar Curtis with space into the end zone for the first of his 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. Under 2 minutes, Lafayette leads 21-7 now. Dangerous territory for a Marist punt. They're able to get it off, but Mason Keener, awaiting the punt, slips his way through the defense, working sideline to sideline, and he will take it to the house. 58-yard punt return put the Leopards up big before half. Early in the third quarter, it's all Lafayette 42-7, and they aren't done yet. Jalen Johnson snatches the pick six as Lafayette cruises to a 56-14 victory.
Marist women's soccer is searching for their first home win since October of 2022 in their first MAC matchup of the year against St. Peter's. Early on in the first, St. Peter's plays off a free kick, but it's met by goalie Maddie Kalanani in her first start back from injury, not missing a beat. 43rd minute, though, Marist corner kick, still no score. Delia Hahn sends it in the box, and it's Lauren Schmidt who scores her first goal of the season, giving Marist their first home lead of the season, up 1-0. Scoring doesn't stop there, though. Maylee McDermott gets her third goal of the season in the 71st, extending Marist's lead to 2-0. Everything looked good for the Red Foxes until 1 minute later, Sophia Dorsey runs into trouble, picks up a red card, leaving Marist down to 10 players, the remaining 18. But they're able to hold up for their first win of this back season.
We'll take it over to men's soccer. They're searching to keep their 1-win streak going, hosting Albany at Tenney Stadium. 18th minute, no scored on the board yet. Albany pushing, and it's a missile from Timo Jansen that finds the back of the net. A long-range delivery gets Albany started as they take the 1-0 lead over the Red Foxes early on. 2 minutes later, Marist looks to return the favor. It'll be Joseph Daher, finds some space but cannot connect, and Albany holds the counterattack. 3 minutes remaining in the first half. Albany sends one into the box, gets up for the header, but Jamie Lowell climbs the ladder for the rejection. Remains the same. Marist tries to do the same on the opposite end, but blocked once again. 78th minute, Albany looking for the dagger. Long throw in, finds a target for the late score, and Albany takes a 2-0 lead the rest of the way, securing the victory.
Marist women's volleyball traveled to East Lansing, Michigan to compete in the Kathy DeBoer Invitational, going up against Western Kentucky, Michigan State, and Loyola Chicago. Early on Friday afternoon, the Foxes started out against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, ultimately losing in 3 sets. Freshman Taylor Miller got her tournament started by leading the Red Foxes with 9 kills, and transfer from UNH, Jamison White, totaled 16 assists. Later in the day, Marist took on Loyola Chicago, starting off well with a 5-2 lead. They couldn't hold on for long. The Ramblers completed the sweep. Taylor added 11 more kills. On Saturday, the Foxes couldn't find any success against Michigan State either. Taylor Miller ended the Invitational with 24 points. Marist unsuccessful in a high-talented tournament, and the freshman shined in her early season action. Her performance led to her being named the Kathy DeBoer Invitational All-Tournament Team.
That's all the time we have for this segment of the Red Fox Report. For Dan Allback, I'm Tommy Armstrong, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Fox Report presented by the Center for Sports Communications. I'm Nick Sharito, alongside William Rosen, fresh off the sidelines from Marist football, but we're going to jump into women's soccer at Sacred Heart.
We go right into the 9th minute. Grad student Grave O'Hara finds Megan Bavardi, but it's left, wide left of the goal. We head to the 17th minute. Senior Bella Lazaro finds Olivia Lindsay. You know it. Right down Broadway for Lindsay. We go to the 35th minute. Midfielder Gabby Toronto finds Jillian Garcia. Go-ahead goal. You know it for Garcia. Marist wins their 2-0 against MAC opponents.
Men's soccer hosts 18 Fordham. The Red Foxes have not beaten a ranked team since 2018. In the 31st minute, senior forward Ricard Morel dribbles, fires. The ball is ricocheted off the defender into the net to tie the game. Jumping ahead to the 64th minute, the ball is bounced in front of the net off a free kick. Morel buries it again. Marist would win 2-1, their first ranked win since 2018.
The Marist women's cross-country team had 3 athletes place inside the top 20 as the team placed 5th overall at Saturday's Jaspers Fall Classic. Freshman Addie Thibodeau led the way, placing 16th out of 144 athletes, but she was trailed closely by sophomore Kyra Pellegrino and freshman Julia Zdanowicz, who placed 17th and 18th respectively in the race.
The men's cross-country team went to compete in the Jasper Fall Invitational this past weekend. Marist had 5 runners placed in the top 20. The leading runner, sophomore Jackson Borge, finished 12th. Following him came Logan Scheffler in 15th, Gabriel Rodriguez in 16th, Tyler Perry in 18th, and Jeremiah Lanham in 20th. The men's team finished 4th overall.
The Marist Minute has expired. That's all we have. For Nick Sherito, I'm William Rosen. Take care.
You know, Mike, that was a pretty heated debate from Prove Your Point. I mean, congratulations to Derek. I believe his record is 8-2 on this show, or 9-2. It's one or the other. I can't really remember. He's on a hot streak, and it's really hard to beat him.
A lot of yelling with him.
Well, as you can see behind us, we're doing a hoop grid today. And we have to find people, 500 field goals made in their career, 2,000 personal fouls, 39% three-point shooting this season, 5 rebounds per game, 2 assists, and an NBA All-Star. I mean, NBA stats are my thing. I don't know about you.
I'm all right with them.
But I think we should jump right into it.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So I'm thinking 500 field goals made in a career. I mean, that's so many different people. If you just played a long time, you're probably going to get it. 5 rebounds per game. So I'm thinking probably on the big forward side.
Sure.
I like Carlos Boozer. You know,
It's a good one.
and bada bing, bada boom. Carlos Boozer, 0.16%.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's a real good job.
All right. What do you think?
So
And I just want to say on record, last year I had an amazing Carlos Dunlap pool in the NFL Immaculate Grid.
All right, so I think I'm going to go NBA All-Star. I'm looking at 39% or better for 3 points. Plenty of guys there. I mean, you think Steph Curry right away, but I'm going to go with the GOAT. Give me MJ. And yes, he's better than LeBron.
Yes, Michael Jordan. .5%, and it's kind of crazy because people don't really view him as a three-point shooter, but in 1996, when the three-point line was moved in, he shot 42% from the field. I'm going to go back to 500 field goals made in a career and 2 assists per game. Now, if you really want to get low, I'm thinking you got to go center here. And one of the most underrated centers of all time, I'm going with Alonzo Mourning.
It's a good ball.
Yeah.
Let's see.
For 500 field goals and 2 assists per game, Alonzo Mourning. .06%.
Man, that is
I know,
impressive.
right?
That's impressive.
All right. We got some other interesting ones that we can pull here. Well, what are we thinking?
I'm going to stick with the field goals here. I'm going to go with the NBA All-Star, and I'm going to say Mike Conley.
One-time All-Star, Mike Conley. I mean, he kind of got it out of pity because there were injuries in 2021. He was a replacement for a replacement. Anthony Davis made it. He got hurt. Devin Booker was a replacement. He got hurt. Mike Conley replaced him. So kind of a pity all-star, if you ask me. It was a pity of a pity all-star, actually.
Still official.
But he's had a long career, great player,
That he has. He's been around.
and 0.68%.
There we go.
Nice pull. 2,000 fouls. Now, 3 fouls per game is about someone who would have plays a lot of minutes, have a long career, probably average. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do for this. For NBA All-Star, I'm thinking about, one-time All-Stars to get our rarity score down. And most people probably don't think of him as an All-Star. They think of him as the guy that the Lakers traded to get Kobe Bryant, Vlade Divac. .35%. We are on a hot streak right now.
That is great.
We are on a hot streak right now.
Oh, let's continue this. I'm going to go with the 5 rebounds per game and also 39% from 3. Give me Paul George.
Loving it. 0.58%. As a matter of fact, that's the highest one on our board right now.
That's
But
insane.
we got to keep it going. I'm going to go to 39% three-point shooting and 2 assists per game. And this is a guy who didn't miss a free throw for 5 seasons. And I believe there was a season he had 50-50, 100 splits. And he's looking to get his 10th year in the NBA so he can have health care for life to help his family. Tony Snell. .47%. Our pools are amazing right now. And we have 2 ones left.
I'm going to stick with the 5 rebounds. This time I'm going for 2,000 personal fouls. Again, you need a guy that's been around. And I'm going to go to past. Give me Bob McAdam.
Bob McAdoo.
Close enough.
In the 1975 NBA MVP, won 3 scoring titles from 1974 to 1976, I believe. And 0.32%. One of the most underrated players of all time. And he played for the Knicks at one point in his career. And our final spot, the middle, which is definitely not the one that you want to get when you're playing cup pong. Okay? But 2,000 fouls and 2 assists per game. You're just going to have to pick anybody that's played a long time. And I'm going to go with a very interesting player right here. Because in 2018, he was in a graphic along with the likes of Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Thaddeus Young. Rarity score of 3.46%. Our highest score was 0.58% from Paul George. And we got this Alonzo Mourning pick, which is absolutely insane. Personally, I think I've only done this one other time. And had a great time tonight.
Impressive. That's a great job.
Mike, first time on the show. How do you like it?
I absolutely love it here. I mean, this is fantastic.
I mean, we're going to have a lot more shows coming in the future, 2 weeks to be exact, for our first ever live production on Halftime on the Hudson. I'm Nick Sharito alongside Mike Duda. We hope to see you next time.